Issues of protecting Russia's national interests in the Arctic, ensuring security as a whole, and military security have been important topics on the agenda of almost all Arctic forums, and today's anniversary forum is no exception. I must note that the situation in the Arctic region remains difficult and tends to worsen. Instead of discussions about cooperation in the Arctic, we increasingly hear the opposite, including the notion that the Arctic is a potential region for future conflict. Everyone is noting the growing conflict potential, linked to increased competition among leading states for access to the natural resources of the Arctic Ocean, as well as the establishment of control over strategic communications, primarily maritime and, undoubtedly, aerial as well. The main factors affecting the military-political situation for us, military personnel, and our system as a whole, the increase of foreign military presence in the region, the collective West ramping up efforts to hinder Russia's economic activities in the Arctic, and activities aimed at not recognizing the national sovereignty of the Russian Federation over the Northern Sea route. I would like to note that the updated Arctic strategies of our opponents reveal an overtly Russophobic sentiment. The sovereign right of any state is to protect itself, and in the case concerning us, Russia, they justify their so-called activities by saying that Russia's activity in the Arctic is a main threat to stability and security in the region. Meanwhile, factually, all their existing doctrinal documents and actions are aimed at progressive militarization, preparation for conducting offensive military operations. For example, the strategy of the United States Defense Department has secured a provision that the extreme decisions taken to expand NATO, meaning Finland and Sweden's accession to the North Atlantic Bloc, allowed the United States to expand its military presence on the Scandinavian peninsula, and, most importantly, it brought it closer to Russia's borders. The question arises, where is the defense here and what objectives are our opponents setting for themselves? I would like to believe that the new national security strategy of the U.S., published 3 days ago, on December 6th, the strategy undoubtedly sets out foreign policy and defense priorities that will change the approaches of the United States and its allies just as radically as the strategy itself towards the development of the Arctic and the transition from confrontation to partnership. The prevailing sentiment is completely Russophobic. Key political statements note an increase in the pace of militarization in the Arctic, which, as I have already noted, is leading to a possible military confrontation in the region under the pretext of protection from threats from Russia. They also threaten our ally China. Note the statement that the NATO Secretary-General Mark Rutte made. It says that, in general, NATO and the United States must actively cooperate to counter Russia and China in the Arctic. Note the public statements made by high-ranking government officials. For example, the newly appointed member of NATO, Finnish Defense Minister Antti Häkkänen. It is necessary to invest in waging war in the far north. The Danish Defense Minister, Troels Lund Poulsen, has also publicly stated on all platforms that there are serious challenges in security and defense in the Arctic, and that there is a need to strengthen the kingdom's presence in the region. The Russophobic stance does not bring closer the positions of Russia and our opponents. I note that the collective West is actively depriving the coastal countries, primarily Russia, of the ability to regulate matters in accordance with national legislation, supported by international law. Yet everyone seems to forget the 234th article of the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea, and this activity, I note, is conducted purposefully. In the last 5 years, the number of troop preparations and exercises in the Arctic region has grown by almost 40%. There has been a significant increase in the number of participating NATO countries, the number of combat personnel in the groups, and the areas and duration of their operations. The intensity of reconnaissance by NATO countries has grown significantly in the last 5 years as well. The annual number of reconnaissance aircraft during this period increased almost by 40%. Also, I would like to note that military structures in northern latitudes are developing quite actively, not civilian structures, but precisely military structures. With the expansion of the Arctic military structure, there is a proportional growth of the NATO troops in the region, which builds up a whole military potential. All these actions indicate the formation of military force tools to deter Russia in the Arctic. Claims of Russia's militarization are not supported by the policies and indicators I have just outlined. I would like to emphasize that it is not us who are approaching their borders, but they are approaching ours. What are we, Russia, the armed forces, and in particular the Navy, doing? Undoubtedly, The Arctic zone is an integral part of Russia. It plays a vital role due to its geopolitical and economic potential. This region, without exaggeration, is a national treasure of Russia. I would like to emphasize that the armed forces of Russia undoubtedly serve as a guarantor of the integrity and inviolability of the Russian Federation, including in the Arctic. The main tool for implementing these commitments here in the Arctic is the Russian Navy, the Northern and Pacific fleets. They ensure security and stability in this region. The main tasks of the fleet in the Arctic remain unchanged, maintaining a favorable environment for the development of all our established, inaudible activities in all areas of state operations. I would like to focus on the main tasks in military security in different areas, which are getting a lot of attention from the country's leadership, especially from Russian President Vladimir Putin. For us, the Arctic also important for the nuclear forces of our state, where the main naval component of our country's triad is located, which is part of the Northern and Pacific fleets. I emphasize, as highlighted by the president of the country, Vladimir Vladimirovich Putin, that the combat readiness of strategic nuclear forces is now at an unprecedented level of advancement, brought to 100%. This means that the given weapon is primarily viewed as a deterrent weapon, a guarantor of strategic stability worldwide. But the emphasis I made, and I repeat it today, the presence of strategic nuclear forces in the fleet in this region increases the responsibility of both the Russian Federation and all forces operating here, including our opponents, which means, as we understand, given the presence of such forces, the path of creating tension in this region is not beneficial activity, and this is exactly how we assess it. We are implementing a set of measures aimed at preventing the use of military force against Russia.
$25 करोड़ गरीब गरीबी को परास्त करके बाहर निकले।
For the good of our nation, let's work together and let's truly make America great again.
The fastest news breaks.
Requested PM saying that you will have to speak to Putin and to Zelensky.
The biggest news makers.
The relationship with India is probably the most important bilateral relationship the US will have for the rest of this century.
The capital delivered quite an election result today.
Expert analysis.
The million-dollar question today is how to stop this dance of death.
Ground reports.
I'm standing at the crossroad of the Kumbh Mela. Behind me are more than 100 entry guards.
Long-form interviews.
Exclusionary politics is reflected in Manipur case as well. You don't bother because this is a small state.
Deep dive into burning issues.
It's often said DRC could be the richest country in the whole world. It's because of what sits underneath.
Why exactly did the US topple the Sheikh Hasina government?
HD videos. We don't just break news, we break it down.